What if missing the most important flight of your life turned out to be the very thing that changed it forever? This is the story of Lena Carter, a young black woman with a dream, a suitcase full of sacrifice, and a heart that refused to walk past someone in need. Her story isn't about luck. It's about choice. The kind that costs you something. The kind that reveals who you are when no one's watching. It's a story about empathy. About what it means to show up for someone else, even when the world rarely shows up for you. And the twist. It'll stay with you long after it ends. So stay with us, because what happened next might just change how you see detours forever. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We'd love to know. Let's begin. The announcement echoed through the airport. Final boarding call for Flight 227 to San Francisco. Lena Carter ran, her sneakers pounding the polished floor. Breath shallow, heart pounding. Her suitcase wobbled behind her, coat flying like a cape. Gate 12 was just ahead. She had worked 2 jobs, late shifts, early shifts, weekends, for nearly a year just to afford this trip. The plane wasn't just a flight. It was the interview, the non-profit, the dream job, the first door in a world that didn't open many for girls who looked like her. This wasn't a ticket. It was an escape, a beginning, a chance. Then she heard it, a quiet, shaky voice behind her. Please, help. Lena froze. By a row of faded seats sat an elderly black man. His cane lay on the floor. One hand clutched his chest. The other reached out, trembling. His face, pale, panicked, ignored. People passed by, looked away, too busy, too rushed, too used to this. Lena turned toward the gate. It was so close. Everything she'd built, on the line. Then she looked at him. And in that split second, she remembered every time someone looked past her. And the one person who never did, her grandmother. Her body moved before her doubt could stop it. She turned and ran to him. She knelt beside the man, one hand on his shoulder, steady but tender. Sir, can you hear me? Are you in pain? He gave the smallest nod. His breathing shallow, uneven. Lena's instincts kicked in. Years helping her grandmother through strokes and hospital visits had prepared her for this. Not in theory, but in survival. She checked his pulse, fast, but strong enough. Kept her voice low, calm, reassuring. She stayed with him, not just physically, but fully present. When airport staff finally arrived, then paramedics. Lena held his gaze until they lifted him gently onto the stretcher. Over the intercom, her name was called. Lena Carter. Final boarding for Flight 227. Once. Twice. A third time. She didn't move. The man needed someone. She stayed. By the time he was wheeled away, Flight 227 had already taken off. Lena sat down on a cold bench near Gate 12, hands trembling. Boarding pass crushed in her fist. Dream postponed, maybe lost. No more flights tonight. No plan B. The interview was tomorrow morning. She stared at the floor, eyes burning. A janitor passed by, an older black man with slow, steady steps. He paused, looked at her. You okay, miss? Lena wiped a tear from her cheek, trying to sound composed. Yeah, I just missed my flight. He nodded once, quiet, deep, as if he understood the kind of loss she hadn't said out loud. Then he kept sweeping. Time passed. The terminal emptied. The lights dimmed. Lena wandered the polished hallways. Aimless. Heavy. Her shoulders carried the weight of a world that never made room for missteps. Her savings? Gone. Her future? Unclear. But her choice? Still the right one. As Lena wandered through the terminal, her steps slow and heavy. She passed a small coffee shop with flickering lights and tired staff. She barely noticed it, until a voice called out, "Miss Lena Carter?" Lena stopped. The barista, a middle-aged black woman, looked at her with a soft smile. One of those knowing smiles. The kind that says, "I see you. You've been asked to go to gate 3. Someone's waiting for you." Lena's heart skipped. Who? The woman just nodded toward the far corridor. Lena hesitated, then moved, dragging her suitcase, worn wheels squeaking slightly. The exhaustion in her body felt louder than the footsteps. At gate 3, 2 men in tailored suits were waiting. Polite. Formal. But not cold. "Miss Carter, Mr. Langston would like a word with you." "Mr. Langston?" she repeated, confused. They didn't explain. Just gestured toward a nearby lounge. She stepped inside. Low lighting. Plush furniture. Quiet luxury. And in a deep leather armchair, sipping tea from delicate porcelain, was the man she had helped. Except now, he was transformed. Clean-shaven. Calm. Sharp. A navy suit that said, "Power lives here." He looked up and smiled. "I hoped I'd see you again." Lena stood still, stunned. "You're okay." "I am," he said warmly. "Thanks to you." She took a slow step forward, still unsure what this was. "I missed my flight. I had an interview. It was really important." He nodded gently. "I know. I asked around. But, who are you?" He placed his tea down, leaned forward, and extended a hand. "Edward Langston, founder and chairman of Silverwing Airways." The words landed like thunder. Her lips parted, but no sound came. "You own the airline," she finally whispered. He chuckled, a quiet glint in his eye. "My kids run most of it now. I just like watching people. You learn who they really are in places like this. The best. And the worst." He looked directly at her now. No business, no performance. Just truth. "And today, I saw the best." Because sometimes life doesn't give you a test on paper. It gives you a test in the form of a person the world overlooks. Lena wasn't trying to stand out. She wasn't chasing approval. She just did what felt right, in a world that rarely rewards people who do. But that choice, that one moment, it changed everything. 2 days later, Lena stood in front of the towering glass facade of the Silverwing headquarters. The building stretched into the clouds, sleek, mirrored, untouchable. She adjusted her blazer, exhaled slowly. From the outside, she still felt out of place. A young black woman raised by her grandmother in a neighborhood where opportunity meant surviving, not ascending. Executives. Power suits. Private elevators. Not her world. Not yet. But something in her had shifted. She stepped inside. A staff member greeted her warmly, guided her through polished hallways, into an elegant boardroom lined with glass, light, and quiet authority. Heads turned when she entered, but this time, not with skepticism. With attention. Edward Langston sat among them, not speaking, just watching. There was something reverent in his stillness. One of the board members spoke. Miss Carter, we've heard a lot about you. But we want to hear from you. Why did you stay with that man, knowing what it might cost you? Lena took a breath. Not to collect her thoughts, but to center herself. I didn't stop to calculate anything. I saw someone who needed help. And I remembered how many times I'd seen my own people ignored when they were in pain. Maybe I missed a flight, but I couldn't have lived with myself if I had walked away. A second board member leaned in. And what would you bring to a leadership role in a program centered on compassion? Lena's voice was steady, clear. I bring experience you won't find on a resume. I bring the perspective of someone who's lived on the other side of this system, who knows what it's like to feel invisible and to be treated like kindness is a privilege, not a right. I want to build something where people, especially those we overlook, are seen, respected, and served with dignity. Because I know what dignity feels like when you're fighting just to hold onto it. Edward spoke then, for the first time. She doesn't need to pitch herself. She already proved who she is, when no one was watching. Silence. But not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that comes just before something shifts. By the end of the meeting, Lena didn't just walk away with a job. She walked into her calling. Silverwing entrusted her with launching the Compassion Initiative, a global program to redesign how the airline served elderly Black travelers often profiled or ignored, caregivers burned out by systems that never gave back, families traveling through loss, trauma, or displacement. She traveled. She listened. She built policy from conversation, not just data. And with each decision, each change, each ripple, the moment at Gate 12 bloomed into something unstoppable. Months later, on a keynote stage, Lena stood before a packed room of leaders, workers, and policymakers. She held no script, just truth. Sometimes, the biggest doors don't open when you knock. They open when you stop. To lift someone up. The world doesn't need more polished resumes. It needs more courageous hearts. The photo that spread globally showed her beside Edward Langston. But what most didn't know was, she didn't enter that room to impress. She entered it to transform. Not for applause. Not for legacy. But because she believed. Kindness isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's vision. It's justice. So the next time life rushes you forward, chasing success, speed, or status, pause. Look around. Because the moment that feels like a detour might be the moment that brings you home. Lena didn't enter the role to impress. She didn't come to perform. She came to serve, and to shift the ground beneath her. And within months, the industry began to notice. She didn't quote policy manuals. She didn't hide behind data. Instead, she sat beside passengers in crowded terminals. She rode economy class on red ice. She spent hours talking to janitors, gate agents, night shift nurses. People who kept the system running but were never in the meetings where change was decided. Before you build anything for people, she said, you sit with them. You listen. Her first initiative was simple, but radical in its dignity. Silent care tags, discreet, wearable bands for passengers who were elderly, anxious, neurodivergent, or grieving. A quiet way to say, please see me. Please be kind. The cost? Almost nothing. The impact? Everything. Then came the bold move. The Companion Fare Program, a policy allowing caregivers or family members to fly free when traveling with someone in critical health situations. It disrupted revenue projections. But when the stories poured in, children reuniting with parents, hospice patients flying home, the resistance collapsed. Next, she launched Community Wings, a partnership with shelters, re-entry programs, and social services that turned unused corporate miles into life-changing flights. Emergency relocations, medical transport, family reunions after years of separation. No seat should fly empty, Lena told the board, when it could carry someone toward hope. But her greatest impact wasn't just in the skies. It was within the company walls. She rewrote training manuals to center empathy, not efficiency. She launched passenger perspective sessions, where real people, disabled travelers, asylum seekers, single mothers, told executives what flying had cost them emotionally. And then she did what few had ever dared. She proposed that frontline workers, the ones with no titles or corner offices, pitch ideas directly to leadership every quarter. If we're building a company that claims to care, she said, then the people closest to the pain should shape the solutions. The board hesitated. Edward didn't. She's not suggesting a new model, he told them. She's reminding us of who we claim to be. Lena didn't recite values in boardrooms. She lived them. And people followed. Soon, other airlines took notice. Policy after policy began to shift across the industry. What started with one missed flight had become a movement, led by a black woman who had once been told she didn't belong in rooms like these. A movement built on a simple, radical truth. No one is too small to deserve dignity, and no act of compassion is ever wasted. 2 weeks later, Lena Carter walked through a quiet park in San Francisco. The sun was rising. Pinned to her blouse was a Silverwing Airways badge, but not the one she had dreamed of. It was more. She didn't just get the job. She got the vision. She got the room. She got the voice. Edward had offered her leadership of the airline's first humanitarian division, focused on elderly passengers, struggling families, caregivers, and anyone the world moves past without seeing. But Lena, she never told the whole story. Not to the press. Not to the board. Not even to the friends who had cheered her on. Because for her, kindness wasn't branding. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't content. It was the thing you do when no one's clapping, when the cameras are off, when doing the right thing might cost you everything. And now, dear viewer, you know who she is. The woman in that viral photo, smiling beside Edward Langston, director of the most daring humanitarian initiative in aviation. That's Lena Carter, the woman who missed her flight and ended up rewriting the altitude of what's possible. Kindness doesn't come with applause, but sometimes it opens doors no resume ever could. So if one day you're rushing through life, chasing something that feels big, pause. Look around, because that detour you almost ignored might just be the exact path that leads you home. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? Globe showing Europe, Africa. Because your story matters too. Your voice, your city, your steps. And if you believe the world needs more stories that lift instead of tear down, you're in the right place. Here, we tell real stories. Stories that make you feel. Stories that remind you. Success isn't always about what you earn. Sometimes, it's about what you give. The smallest act of courage, done in silence, can echo louder than any title. Because one choice, one moment, one act of compassion can change everything.